we're a one-party state where there's sort of no checks on that sort of extreme leftism. And what do you think?
I don't for a minute consider California a state that is extreme leftist. Not at all, not any way.
Well, that shows where your politics are. That's not where mine are.
On a recent edition of the Club Random podcast, Hollywood icon and lifetime activist Jane Fonda took the fight to the smug, entitled elitist Bill Maher. And less than 15 minutes into the convo, you can already tell she's getting really tired of his right-wing BS.
When he left office, he had an approval rating of 34%. So he really only had those people.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he now tied? Because the other part of the coalition are people who, they don't really like him that much.
Before we let Maher explain why he thinks Trump's voter coalition grew compared to his coalition of support after leaving office in 2021, we have to mention that Kamala Harris and the Dems ran an objectively centrist to center-right campaign with the main objective of gathering as many independent, centrist, and never-Trumper Republicans as possible and abandoning the progressive economic populist wing of the party. Now let's hear what Maher's analysis is.
They just think the far left has gone so nutty on so many issues.
That's what they're being told.
That's what
by people like you.
Because it's true.
Look, she couldn't be more correct here. Liberal presenting media figures like Maher are so enamored with protecting institutional norms and the status quo that they would rather concede power and sell out the majority of the American public to fascists instead of adopting popular progressive policies like banning money in politics, raising the federal minimum wage, diverting military funds to social programs, paid family leave, etc. That's the real reason why the Dems are in crisis right now. But recognizing that truth directly conflicts with serving the economic interests of their donors and the careerists who run the party. Now more from Maher and Fonda.
Who is the far left? What do you mean when you say far left?
They just suggest something to the average person, which I completely understand, which is, wow, do you people ever find anything that's ridiculous? If we had a utopia, it would be the greatest pain for you because you need to be. I mean, you're there for the cause, absolutely sincerely, but also the cause is there for you, a little. Am I wrong?
I don't. You're so different than me that it's hard for me sometimes to even understand what you're talking about.
Really? So we must have a lot in common.
I don't think we do.
Maher's shock at Fonda's response here is a perfect encapsulation of the attitude of entitlement that seeps through the Dem Party's establishment. The contention and sheer surprise that someone would dare to criticize the party from the left while holding unselfish, principled policy positions is not unique to Maher, but is a key aspect of how the party operates and why so many people are turned off by the party itself.
Why? What do you think is so different about me?
Your worldview is so totally different than mine. I don't see people the same way. I don't see.
You think I'm a cynic?
I think you're very cynical. I know. Yeah.
But don't you think the world makes you cynical?
I don't know. I'm not cynical. And I've been around longer than you.
Yeah.
A good 20 years more. You could be my son. I'd put you over my knees and spank you. You'd probably like that.
No, I think I'm very normal. I think I'm very normal, and I love when I grew up. I think it was like a very normal time.
If you were white, yeah.
Yes, if you were white,
yeah.
Absolutely. Glad we said that.
If you take anything away from this interview besides Maher being a narcissistic, elitist snob who cares about nothing more than garnering as much attention and money as possible, it's that people who think the same as Maher are the same ones who legitimately believe that their positions are what the majority of Americans want, when in reality, they're only appealing to their insulated bubble that still gets a paycheck regardless of who's in power. Jane Fonda is the perfect foil for Maher and the ideas he represents because she's putting a lifetime of work into her activism and the larger fight for justice, something Maher could not hold a candle to.
There's a revolution taking place in the Philippines. A national democratic revolution against U.S. imperialism. And tens of thousands of students like yourselves march in the streets, strike, and cry out against the crimes that are being created against the people of their country by the bankers and the corporations and the factories and the Nixon regime. And I use the word regime because I don't feel that Nixon and the people that work with him represent the interests of any of us, be we men, women, black, white, yellow, Chicano, or brown. We should keep the issues foremost, and the foremost issue is the war, because around the war is racism, is sexism, is imperialism, is everything that it is destroying our lives and alienating us and making our culture and our society inhuman. We must keep the war in the foreground, which means that every time Humphrey speaks, we must go carrying the Pentagon Papers. Perhaps McGovern can end the war faster than any other candidate. And if that's what we feel, then we should vote for him. But we should do so with the clear understanding that the profound causes of inhumanity and criminality and murder and the tearing asunder of societies all around the world will not be solved by a McGovern or a saint in the White House. It is we, the people of this country.
Fonda delivered this powerful speech to UCLA's students back in 1972, condemning the imperialist actions of the U.S. government, demanding an end to the bloodshed in Vietnam, and highlighting the internal hypocrisy Americans face in fighting for social justice and equality.
What scares me as I travel through Michigan is the degree to which average people are not getting news. The television stations, the radio stations are being bought up by Sinclair and others, and it's really scary. And, I think that corporations are determining what people hear. There are some exceptions, obviously. Nixon was very unhappy, and they did an investigation, and a guy from the State Department said she never committed treason. All she did was ask the soldiers to think. It wasn't until Reagan that they realized how important it would be to use my huge mistake to make me a Hanoi Jane, a traitor, to hurt the peace movement. And that's what hurts me so much, is that it was bad for the peace movement and it hurt the soldiers. So it was a big mistake. Anyway.
Interestingly, today, with the longest war in U.S. history, Afghanistan and Iraq, a number of soldiers who come back from all of these places are condemning these wars and asking what the U.S. is doing. You don't usually hear those soldiers in the media.
Yeah. Well, just like you didn't hear those soldiers back in the day, or the POWs who spoke out and said, no, we were not tortured. The Vietnamese ruled out torture in 1970, but you never heard from them. Nixon never allowed them to have a platform.
Her anti-war activism went hand in hand with her environmental and indigenous rights activism, continuing to this day to sound the alarm on the existential threats caused by the insatiable greed of corporations and the elected officials that work to do their bidding.